Good morning. Our hand today is going to be pocket sevens. In this hand, we're playing 10 and L, and we have a poster in the mid position. So we have limp, 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 and limp, and then it gets to me. Alright, so these are 4 limping ranges. This villain's going to be pretty wide because he already had one big blind out there. So we just have to exclude any of the hands that I think he would raise. This player limps. This is 36-4, so he seems to be passive. His limp first in stat from early mid position, 50%, 51%, 43%. Doesn't seem to raise at all. So I do have his like limp and caller raise, his kings, limp and re-raise, kings plus. Ace can be in here. I'm going to assume that he probably would have raised those. We can actually drop this down to maybe, let's say, 40% chance that he has both of those. But as you can see, it's pretty wide. Next player is playing 40-12. He's probably a little bit tighter. He does have 6% 3-bet stat, so I think he's going to be more aggressive with his better hand. So still, I shifted his range to more like suited cards. Suited connectors, gappers, and so forth. That's about 40%. He does have his offsuit connectors and offsuit gappers, but he doesn't have jacks plus ace queen. I assume he's going to raise with that. Next guy is our limper. I'm going to say that range that I came up with is going to be the same for the next player because they're both kind of similar stats. This guy seems to be a little bit looser, 51%, but still it is he doesn't really have a 3-bet range. I do have some stats on here. So limp under the gun, 7-5 off. So he does have offsuit gappers and so forth. Something wide. This player, a little less. He's at 38%, whereas the others were 40% plus. Also doesn't really have a high 3-bet stat, so just overall weak range. I gave him something like this, a little bit smaller. We'll add the queen 8. Again, I kind of feel like if he's going to be playing, he would raise with those big hands. Does he need those as well? Nah, he's in position. I think he might have raised a little bit. No, probably not. Not with his stats. He's passive. So then it's on me. Alright, so here's my ISO range. Got the always ISO in dark blue, optional ISO in light blue. I think this is a spot where we should be raising. And how much we raise? Probably like 10 big blinds. If it was just one limper, we could raise to like 6. 2 limpers, we could do like 7 to 8. 4 limpers, I think we raise to 10 and not be surprised if everyone folds. And I think that's our play. I didn't do that. I just called. I just limped behind, which is pretty ridiculous. Now, I do know in this time, I have limped in heads up or 3-handed play. I do think you have to build in some strategies, some limping strategy when you're short-handed like that. Because if you don't, then every time you bet, I mean, eventually the player's going to start raising you very lightly. So I think by mixing in some of these limping ranges, you're allowing villain to see the flop, and it kind of eases up on some of the raises. But here, I don't like limping behind. This is 7 players at the pot in the hand. We should be raising or we should be folding. So there was a time, one of these hands in the small blind where I limped and it was accidental. I meant to click the raise button, and as I moved the mouse, I ran into like my keyboard or something like that caused my finger to hit the button that hit the check. or just the call button instead of the raise button. So this could be it. So this is a little unusual for me to do this. I don't normally do this. So I made the mistake. I should be raising this. I'm gonna go with this range because I shouldn't really have a calling range. And if I do, then we're gonna say something like with a calling range, we're looking something like incredibly weak. Maybe something like that. And then our last guy, big blind checks. He's got basically all his hands minus hands that I assume people would raise with and isolate. Jacks plus ace queen could be bigger. So we see a board of ace ace 3, bunch of limpers. Surely someone has an ace. So I think there's going to be callers. I don't think it's wise to bet here, so I just checked. I would probably call depending on what happens. So like if he bet and then it goes fold, I probably call once. If it goes check and one of these last guys bets, I'd probably still call. And then if like I call and everyone else calls, then at that point it's like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna fold here. Note that you do have two short-handed players or short stacked, so it checks around. So really, I don't think this narrows anybody's down. I'd like to think that someone with an ace would be betting here. Someone with an underpair would bet here, but I could see that players might be scared of the ace if they have an underpair. They're going to be scared that someone's slow playing the ace. So they would be afraid to bet. Or if they have the ace, they're looking at, okay, I don't want to bet here because I basically have the only cards. So I think I'm going to keep 100% of everyone's range in there until this turn card. And now I think we're going to get a little bit more reliable information. So everyone checks here. And at this point, I think these two guys are going to start losing their, the hands that they have. So not necessarily the big blind. I still think they're pretty wide. Not necessarily the first limper either. I think at this point, we are losing three of a kind. We could leave a full house and quads, maybe. I think three of a kind would have been betting. I think middle pair probably checks. So I think they're looking, they have something like that. Again, I think maybe middle pair checks. And we're still playing like full house plus. All right, so we've narrowed those, and then river's a 4 of spades. I mean, that seems a little scary, but I have a 7 of spades. That's one less spade out in the deck. So now the question is, it's checked all away. Should I bet? I kind of think I may have bet. I possibly should have bet on the turn, let out. But since I didn't, I think all I can do is check. Yeah, I've got full house. I could have flushes in here, but I don't really have three of a kind. It's just I shouldn't really have that. So I think I do okay by just checking. And then this guy bets. And at this point, the question is, what's he going to bet? How strong is he? I think you could see full house flush is betting. Possibly the straight, possibly the three of a kind. I don't. Maybe those are showdown values. Maybe nothing. Maybe weak pair. If we just say 100% that he's taking a stab, you can see 50% it's a bluff for him. We're going to be bet at beating 75% of his hands. Because he could have a 3, he could have a 4. And it's not overly large, so that's kind of why I think excluding some of these premium hands and just going weak pair, mid pair, nothing, that's probably his range. So then they all fold, and this is just kind of crazy because I'm looking at it and saying, wow, that bet just doesn't, it's too small. It's too small. And unfortunately, my range, my calling range, was really narrow. That I don't, yeah, I don't feel like I could raise this. I could. I think I would raise full house. I don't even have a nut full house. I mean, I'm gonna be behind like ace 3, ace 4. So that's kind of thinking maybe I should have led those, but again, it's how we played it with the check on the flop and the turn. It's probably best to just go ahead and check on the river as well. So I think this is too. I think we need a call. We beat a lot. We beat his 3s, his 4s. We obviously lose to anything better like queens plus, but his bet size is just such where we're probably going to be calling him, and we're probably going to win at least 50% of the time, and we only need to be good 15%. So I think this is a pretty easy call for me with pocket 7s. He shows jack 4, which it's crazy, but I'm not going to take a note on this because it was a limped pot. So we had it in his range. We had that as limp, as the weak pair. Don't know if I could have played this differently. Maybe once the flop was checked through, maybe at that point lead the turn. And I see a lot of these hands that end up checking, streets, check flop, check turn. They tend to be these weaker pairs. So if I raised, I don't think I'm going to get called by those. I think I only get called by like ace, trip aces plus. So I think if we raise, we're turning our 7s into bluffs. We're turning our 7s into bluffs. And I guess in many ways, that's also why we check. Because if we bet, I mean, would an ace call, would like jack 4 call us? Probably not, but he might actually take a stab at it. So, all right, hopefully you enjoy this hand. If you do, look tomorrow for another one.